Good evening and welcome to another Sunday night weekly candle close special as we look at Bitcoin trying to close the week above $91,000. This is, of course, a massive week for the markets. We have the Fed meeting on Wednesday. 25 basis point cut looks like the most likely outcome, but we do have the uncertainty of what's coming in 2026. With QT now ending, rumours about the QE program that's coming and why that is probably essential for markets. We'll dive into everything tonight. We're going to look across the market. We'll look ahead to next week and we'll look at some of the top news stories as well. Good to see so many in. If you could do me a favour, drop a like on this stream. We have loads of content coming over the next few weeks as we hopefully get a bit of a Santa rally, a bit of a rally into the end of the year, and a very explosive 2026. If you've got any questions, drop them in the chat. I'll try and get to them tonight as well. And quite nice for a Sunday evening, we are seeing Bitcoin price try to recover after closing that fair value gap over the weekend. If we jump down to the smaller time frames, you can see this large candle here on Tuesday created a big kind of imbalance in the market. That's what's called. It's called a fair value gap. It basically means that there's no candle wick between here and here. That's that orange box. You can see partially filled it on Friday afternoon, just as the US markets were kind of in the middle of the day. And then over the weekend, just earlier today, we managed to close that fair value gap completely. That is normally a bullish sign for markets, but as always, weekend pumps, nothing to really trust. Sunday pumps, especially not to be trusted. So we wait and see to see what happens later tonight when Bitcoin futures reopen. Remember, Bitcoin closed at $89,500 on Friday. That means if prices stay above $91,000 tonight, that's going to create a CME gap. CME gaps typically get filled. So it wouldn't be surprising if we saw Bitcoin price stay above here tonight and then maybe tomorrow have a bit of a sideways day. Tuesday, dump back to the $89,000 level ahead of the FOMC meeting on Wednesday. We do normally see a big de-risk in the days leading up to FOMC. Not necessarily because it's unpredictable, but it's more just large players taking some leverage off the table, waiting for the outcome, and then they can rebuy pretty quickly when they understand what the press conference says, what Powell says, what direction the markets are taking. We've seen quite a volatile week for XRP. So XRP last week closed the week up around 216, but it had reached up to the 230 level during the week. This week we are back down. We touched 197 again. This orange line seems to be a bit of a magnet for XRP's price, bouncing off it. But on the kind of semi-bullish cases, we do now have higher low, higher low, higher low. So technically, that's three rising valleys. That is a bullish pattern and normally leads to an expansive move. I think it's similar to what we actually saw kind of play out down here. Let me just drag it down. If you see, we had low, slightly higher low, slightly higher low, and then of course we then went into kind of an upward trajectory. So could we see XRP rebound? Possibly. I think Bitcoin's going to be the key driving factor this week, so it will really depend on what Bitcoin does. Another amazing week for metals. So gold closing the week up around $4,200. So strong week again, off the back of kind of all-time highs. We are just kind of seeing this range start to form between the $4,000 level and the all-time high. I do think gold could just chill up in this range for a while. Maybe make some new all-time highs into 2026 as that kind of QE money printer starts. Silver, another huge week, closing another all-time high weekly candle close up around $58. Huge move for silver. I don't think it's over yet. Seeing lots of rumours about a short squeeze on silver, a lack of physical silver in the vaults in London. A lot of central banks demanding actual physical deliveries. So a lot of paper contracts are being cashed in for physical. There's huge demand for silver in the renewables, in the tech space, in AI. And that's causing a big issue for silver dealers who, in my opinion, are probably over leveraged. They've probably got a lot more paper contracts than actual physical silver, and that's why we're starting to see retail get squeezed. Premiums are absolutely skyrocketing right now, and I do think silver is going to continue higher. I think $75 is looking more than likely in the next couple of months. Trump designated silver as a key component over the last couple of weeks as well, so that kind of shows the importance when you've got Trump talking about a specific metal. It just shows you the importance of silver in the AI race, and I think with China and some other Asian nations scooping up loads of metals over the last year or so, I think the West now needs to play catch up. That's going to drive prices, and it's going to be very bullish for anyone that holds silver. Let me know if you do hold gold and silver, and we'll maybe cover it a bit more. But there is a stream that I did last week on just metals, and we're going to do another one on AI and probably some more stuff on commodities over the next couple of weeks, because I think the energy trade is one of the biggest trades of the next 5 years, and I think there's some really good opportunities in that space. If we look across the crypto market, Ethereum back above $3,100 again. Very similar story across the market. It's just kind of chopped in this range, but it is putting in higher lows on the daily. We're now trying to form some support at this $3,000 level after testing it as resistance. It's now flipped into support. That's bullish for me, but we really need to close above this $3,225 level. But that does unlock a bit of upside, and we could see quite a quick move up to kind of $3,750 once we break that. So I do think the altcoin market is set up very nicely. I think Q1 is going to be explosive for altcoins, and I think right now it's more a case of sitting on your hands, dollar cost averaging, and maybe just chilling out and waiting for the market to take hold, because I do think there is some massive altcoin moves coming early next year. And I'll show you why in some of the news stories as well. So let's start with the Fed. We'll get the macro out the way first. So the Fed meets on Wednesday. 86% chance we get a 25 basis point move. We've seen mixed data over the last few weeks with job data, some inflation data, market sentiment data. All in all, the US economy is grinding to a halt. I'll actually show another story shortly, which will show why. Kobayashi letter on X shows that the Fed's balance sheet fell $37 billion in November. It reached its lowest level since April 2020. The Fed has reduced its assets by $2.43 trillion since the QT program began, and that is why markets have really struggled. It doesn't really matter about the halving, it doesn't really matter about the 4-year cycle. Up until the 1st of December, we were in an active tightening cycle where money was being drained out the system at the fastest rate in history because we expanded the system at the fastest rate in history. So, yeah, it's taken its toll on the markets. People will point to the S&P 500 and things making all-time highs, but that is the AI trade. And without AI, the S&P 500 would be flat or down. So crypto's just more tied directly to global liquidity, and that's why we're seeing such a decline in the markets in November, which was a really sharp decline in overall liquidity. And the US liquidity is the most important driving factor of that. So 25% cut on Wednesday. The most important thing is going to be the direction of travel over the next few months, and by that I mean there's pretty much since I got into crypto and since macro became a big thing, the Fed's always been aligned. They've always been in agreement. It's always unanimous or one dissenter. Right now we've got a 50-50 split at the Fed. There's like a power vacuum. Powell is leaving. Trump's tried to put in his own people, but there's still this struggle for leadership, and what it's causing for markets is real uncertainty. So if we look ahead to January, the chances of a rate cut are all over the place. Will we get down to the 325 basis point area? Will we be at 350? It's just so chaotic. And when you look at the movement, you can see it changes all the time. A cut down to the 350 level is 65% right now, but a month ago it was 52%. There's so much sway in it, and every time somebody comes out and speaks, these numbers all change. Fast forward even further to March, there's no meeting in February. And you can see again, we're all over the place. So that's going to be really important for Powell in Wednesday's press conference, in my opinion, is to direct the markets about what's going to happen in Q1 next year. There's a lot of games going on. Trump's got his new Fed chair pick already decided. He's going to announce it soon. That will cause some changes in the markets as well. And ultimately, we know what's coming. We just don't know when. And that is going to be money printing, rate cuts. And I think ultimately the Fed needs to get rates down sub 3%. But they can't do it too quickly because it will really trigger markets. So I think ultimately 2.5 is probably the area they're going to aim for. I think they'll get there by the end of 2026. And I think that QE, that money printing is just going to drive a lot of that. Right, let's have a look through some of the stories. So we've covered Kobayashi, we've covered QE, we've covered kind of macro. Let's talk about crypto, and then we'll come back to the one-on-one calls as well. So Binance came out last week and said that we are going to see a market comeback in Q1 of 2026. February and March will be a bull market again based on market indicators. And that was the head of research at CoinMarketCap on market cycles, but she was talking at the Binance conference, and Binance retweeted it. Now, I have said this phrase a long time. We have spoke about this a lot on this channel. Watch not what they say, but what they do. But in this case, it's who's saying it and who's retweeting it. You've got Binance literally telling you there is going to be a bull run in Q1 2026. You would be a fool not to pay attention to Binance and what they are telling you. They're basically saying everything out loud, and we've said this all year. Trump's doing the same, Bessent's doing the same. We know what is coming because they're telling you. It's right in front of your face. And then you've got this one here, which I thought was really interesting, is TMG tweeted the part about Michael Saylor, but the most important bit is this. CZ, I have been telling all country leaders about this. He's been telling country leaders that America is going to buy Bitcoin, and when it does, its enemies are going to have to chase the Bitcoin price. And once nation states start competing for Bitcoin, Bitcoin's price is going to absolutely fly. And again, it's not about what's being said, it's by who's saying it. And CZ is literally the ultimate puppet master in crypto. So if he's saying something, you need to pay attention. Let's have a look. And then we've got this. So we learned that the US is looking at a strategic Bitcoin reserve bill, which will allow people to pay taxes in Bitcoin. It'll mean there's no capital gains. But also what's bullish about this is it allows America to actually start stacking Bitcoin without going and buying it, because they've already said they will never sell their Bitcoin. So the more Bitcoin added to their stack, that's more Bitcoin that won't be sold. And it just gives it more credibility as a kind of a reserve asset after America actually, they've not just seized some, they've not just mined some, they're starting to accept it for tax payments. And I think we're going to get a lot of regulation in a quick period. And I think that's going to be bullish for Bitcoin. It's going to give it legitimacy. It's going to make it easier to transact with. It's going to make it easier to do business with. And that's why I'm not too worried about the MicroStrategy MSCI FUD from last week, because I think ultimately America's and Trump and the Trump administration have kind of pinned their flag in the ground. They are bullish on Bitcoin. They're going to protect Bitcoin and crypto. And I don't think they're going to be bullied by MSCI even if it is JP Morgan. And I think JP Morgan fits into that power vacuum that we already spoke about. And then I just wanted to share this. This is probably the last news story, but Scott Bessent basically saying the Fed is basically a retirement home for PhD economists. He doesn't know what they do. They're never right. And if air traffic controllers were as accurate as the Fed, no one would get on a plane. And this is what I've been saying for a while, is this fight at the Fed is to actually change the Fed's operating procedure. Ultimately, the Fed will move to more a predictive forecasting type model, where they try to get ahead of problems rather than just react to data. Inflation's high, so they pause rate cuts. Labour market dumps, so they cut rates to try and save jobs. That is so reactive. That doesn't help the economy. That's not good for business. It's not good for stocks. It's not good for anyone. If you're trying to do business, if you're trying to be a startup or be a multi-billion-dollar company, you need to know what's coming 12 months, 18 months down the line. And this is why so many banks are in trouble in the US. Banks are in trouble in the US because they're sitting on massive unrealized losses because the Fed said we're not increasing rates. In 2022, they said we're not increasing rates, and then they moved them up faster than they've ever done in history. That can't happen, and I think Bessent is signalling that. And then lastly, Michael Saylor signaling that he will be buying Bitcoin over the next 24 hours. Back to orange dots. That means he's going to be buying big. And I checked earlier. I'm not sure if I've got it open here. Let me try and open it. But the Polymarket odds of MicroStrategy announcing 1,000 Bitcoin purchase, 47% chance. That's pretty high, I'd say. 1,000 Bitcoin tomorrow. That's quite a high chance. So, yeah, interesting. 74% chance that they do get delisted from MSCI. I would take the no on that. I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, some interesting calls. On Polymarket, we do have a stream on prediction markets coming on Tuesday. Tune into that. We'll let you know what we think of the latest craze in prediction markets. Right, let's jump back to the charts. Let me see who's in the chat and let's see what is happening tonight. Who's all in? We've got the usual suspects. Are you confident for $2 Borg? This cycle, $2 Borg, that is bearish. That is very bearish. I think it goes much higher. I think one thing that is very clear in the markets is people have really been scarred by 2025. 2025's done a lot of damage to mood, positivity, sentiment, whatever you want to call it, but also towards the whole entire space. A lot, like when people get into crypto, crypto's going to change the world, it's going to do X, Y, and Z. 2025's ruined all that attitude. I never see these massive, like, emotional crypto's so amazing, it's going to change the world posts anymore, because people are just drained. The cycle has absolutely destroyed sentiment. But for me, I think the long-term prospects of crypto are still huge. The potential to do a lot of change to the financial industry, just to the world in general, is still there. But I think 2025 has absolutely destroyed people's attitude and their kind of mentality towards it. So they've started downgrading their price targets because they no longer have as much faith because of such a bad 2025. It's a really strange psychology, but it's totally understandable. I'm not having a go. Like, I get it. It's been an absolute crazy year. And I guess if we went back a year, let's have a look at, maybe XRP is a good example. But if we go back 12 months, yeah, XRP was at 225. If you told me at 12 months later we'd be lower than that price that day, there's no way. There's no chance I would have taken that bet. So I think that's really hurt people. People obviously had plans, they had kind of expectations on the market, and that they haven't developed. But for me, it's not a reason to lower your price targets. If you still see the upside potential in the space, the industry, and you know how corrupt and destroyed the traditional financial system is, then it shouldn't really hurt your price targets. For me, QE is going to be bigger than ever. Money printing is going to be bigger than ever. Liquidity is going to be bigger than ever. I think if you look around the world, it's easy to see why. Japan, basically bankrupt. China, deflation, totally ruined, needs stimulus. The US wants stimulus. They want liquidity. They want to devalue the dollar. These things can't just happen. They can't just flick a switch and it happens. They need to coordinate. And that's why I'm so bullish on metals, because I think there will be a revaluation of gold at some point in the near future to get rid of all the debt. Because if China and the US agree to revalue gold at $10,000 an ounce, well, the US can wipe out probably 7-8 trillion of outstanding treasury debt. They can then go and refinance a whole bunch of the debt at 30-year premiums, and then the interest expense goes away, the debt to GDP drops by half. Like, they can solve so many problems. It's so corrupt. It would destroy everybody's savings and everybody's purchasing power. They don't care. So, yeah, I think $2 Borg just kind of highlights that. It's like, think of why you bought Borg, why you're bullish on it, what you think it can get to. Look at a chart, look at previous cycles. Borg will absolutely exceed that. Borg will go $5-6. And I think the entire space will go so much higher than anyone thinks. And that's why I've said I think I've said it for probably a year now, the biggest danger in this market is people sell too early, then they buy back in to chase the higher prices, and that's how they get wrecked. And I've showed that before, but if we look at Solana's a great example that people previously had price targets of, say, $1,000. So what will happen is it'll get to, I don't know, say if you're bearish, you maybe sell Solana, say around here about 330. You sell at 330 because you're like, it's up, I've made my gains. But then you buy back in at like 480 because you're convinced you've read something, it's going to $1,000 and it tops out at 500 and you get wrecked. That is literally what I could see happening. Those numbers are just totally off the top of my head. They're not thought out. They're not numbers I think it's going to do. But that's kind of what I think is people sell here. They watch it rally. They start counting how much they should have made or how much they could have made. And then it gets to 480 and they're convinced it's going to $1,000. So they buy back in and it actually tops out at 500. It rolls over and they get absolutely wrecked. That's the biggest danger in this market, is because people are going to sell too early. And it gives them a long time to have FOMO. Eventually they'll capitulate to the FOMO. They'll buy into the market at the top. And of course that will be devastating, to be honest, and they'll get wrecked. One of the other things I think that I've spoke about in CC Pro quite a few times is, so obviously you've got the Binance story, Binance retweeting that they think February, March is going to be very bullish for the crypto space. The midterms are coming next year. So the midterms are coming in November 2026. So we'll just draw that on because otherwise we'll forget about it. So that's the midterms. A lot of people are now saying that Trump and the administration are going to run the markets hot into the midterms, which I agree with. I've said it for a while. They're delaying the pump in order to win the midterms. That's what I've said for a while. That's why 2025 has been a bit of a disaster, because they've front ran all the pain. They've basically done all the dirty work first, and then they're going to have the bullish times afterwards. Most presidents do the opposite. But for me, the danger zone is somewhere in probably here. Somewhere in here. And the reason why is because I think we'll rally hard at the first part of next year. And I think we'll get... So let me draw on. I know I'm doing a lot of drawing tonight, but sometimes it makes sense. So if Bitcoin, for example, rallies hard first part of next year, and then it gets to, say, May, June time, and then corrects, everyone will say, yeah, but we've got one more pump into the midterms, and everybody will be expecting that to happen. My personal opinion is that that'll be the top, that'll be the peak, and actually we won't have that second rally for two reasons. One, summer's typically sideways, bearish, kind of non-event for crypto markets, but also crypto will have already soaked up a lot of that liquidity. All the bullish tailwinds have already kicked in. We'll have regulation, we'll have institutions, we'll have all that. And then I think this would be the perfect time to kind of trap the bulls. One more rally into the midterms. Trump needs the midterms to win. They need to pump the markets again. And when everybody expects something, that's when it doesn't happen. So then that becomes the absolute pain point for the market, and we actually just continue down. And a lot of people get trapped expecting one more pump. And the easiest way I can describe it is just by showing you 2021, because that's exactly what happened in, and I've showed this loads on the channel, so if you've seen this a lot, I do apologise, but in this period here, that's exactly what everybody expected. So obviously we rallied to $64,000 in April, massive, brutal correction in 2021, but then we recovered into November 2021, $69,000. Everybody had 100k as their target. Why would we not hit 100k? Psychological level, blah blah blah. So when we corrected here and started rising, in here was the perfect bull trap. Everybody thought, that's it, we're about to go into the blow off top, 100k, and then it's the bear market. And we were already on the decline, and we never ever got above this point. This was the biggest bull trap. Everybody got suckered in, and I think they'll do the same again. So yeah, that would be my words of caution, shall we say, tonight. B Don says he's bullish on silver, and Alexander C says he's got a kilo silver bar and his digital silver is up 70% so far. Nice. And Lee, the crypto guy, thinks $5 will be comfortable for Borg. If we have a quick look at the stocks as well, record high for Dow Jones last week, S&P record high, weekly close, and Nasdaq not far off it as well. The Russell back above this orange line, so actually the highest weekly close in history for the Russell last week. I think if we get the 25 basis point rate cut this week, which I think we do, I think if the Fed's dovish and indicates that there's going to be more cuts in 2026 than the market's predicting right now, which wouldn't be hard, then I do think we see the Russell start to rally, and I think that will be bullish for crypto. I think also looking at that timeline of kind of March being like a bull kind of peak time, that would suggest that we do start moving higher soon. My only caution against that is this time of year is terrible in terms of most traders, if they're in profit for the year, probably just want to consolidate their wins. But then also you've got a lot of times where the market's closed over Christmas and New Year. And that's typically when we see a lot of games played in the market. We see a lot of sell-offs, we see a lot of manipulation. So it might be a good time to stack some spot. There's some really cheap crypto. I'll tell you a story in a second. But like if you look across the market, I was having a look earlier, CRV down at 39 cents. I think it's an absolute bargain. Arbitrum at 21 cents is crazy low. You've got SWI at 164. But even some of the top alts, Polkadot down at 214, absolute ridiculous price. and Uniswap 565. So if you are stacking over the next few weeks, I think you can't really go wrong in the market. I mean, obviously you could, but like if you pick some standout projects that you believe in, this is a crazy time to buy. And for everybody that's down and a bit disappointed with the market, I think this is like giving you a second chance to buy alts that maybe you didn't buy the first time, or maybe you didn't see the potential in. This is like something that doesn't normally happen in investments, where you actually get to buy at a very cheap price after spending a while in the market. So I think you should take advantage if you can, or if you want to. Predictions for the S&P 500. To be honest, I don't really trade the indexes. I've got a bit of Tesla stock. I've got some MicroStrategy stock. I used to buy stocks, but to be honest, I think it's quite difficult to tell. I think the S&P 500 goes much higher. I think it'll do 7,500 probably next year, which would be, what's that, about 10% move. I think we will get a massive correction at some point in the next 18 months, like a 30% correction, which is quite big for the S&P 500. I think it's like a, 10, or maybe it's bigger, maybe it's 30 trillion. It's something stupid like that. So a 40%, 30% correction, something like that will happen in the next 18 months. But one thing I think isn't going away is the AI trade, and I think the more companies that, this is what I think some people struggle with, is the more AI impacts jobs, that's actually bullish for stocks, even though it's terrible for the actual economy. And I think people can't seem to grasp that. So if robotics replace every single warehouse worker for Amazon in the world, it might make unemployment go from 5% to 10%. But it'll make Amazon's share price go absolutely through the roof, because they're more profitable, they're more efficient, they've got more free cash flow, they can control prices better, they can control the market better. So this is what I think some investors fail to grasp, is that just because it's bearish for people or the economy, it doesn't mean it's bearish for the stock. And that's why I think the AI trade's going to propel the S&P 500 much higher. The Nasdaq will be a big winner. And I think the Russell will start to catch on, because the Russell's going to probably be the place where a lot of startups are, and a lot of small caps can benefit from being some key parts of the AI trade. So you might be a components factory somewhere in the States that your components are needed for data centers. Well, that's going to benefit you. You might be a data center build out company. All these companies, they're never going to be mega stocks, but they'll be in the Russell 2000, and that's where the AI trade's going to benefit small caps over the next year or so. And I think Tesla will do really well. I mean, almost a record high weekly close for Tesla. I post this chart all the time because I think it's hilarious how bearish everybody was down here. Tesla's now up 83% since then. I think it goes to all-time highs over the next month or so, and then it just starts to climb. I think if Optimus is a success, robotaxis are going to be huge. I saw Germany have now tested full self-driving in Germany, which would be massive for the EU. Yeah, I think people underestimate AI. We'll do a stream on AI next week sometime, I think. But it could be a long stream, because the capabilities are just growing every single day, and it's going to touch everybody's lives, whether they like it or not. All right, let's. So for MD new to the stream, we don't have ads, we don't have sponsors. We do have a private members community called CC Pro. It's a Discord community. We do daily members updates. We do TA. Every Monday, I post market analysis of the week before and what's coming that week, so you can kind of set up for the week. We've got a podcast, which we do interviews with founders and some hot topics, and then we do some members-only live streams as well. We've also got a meme coin section, which we posted something in earlier today, and we've also got a move to Dubai section. So if you're not in, the link is in the description. I will drop it in the chat right now. But not only do we try and help you make as much money as possible, try and keep everybody safe, and of course not lose money as well, which these days is very important in crypto. So check it out if you're not in it. The link is now in the chat. Sign up. We're coming into a really important time of the market. It's been a tough 2025, but we are starting to turn, and I think you can see all the signals are starting to come together. You saw Vanguard last week capitulate and offer Bitcoin to its clients after saying it wouldn't. You saw a lot of crypto bullish news. Coinbase, Larry Fink saying he's made a mistake with Bitcoin. You saw Bank of America up their allocation of Bitcoin in people's portfolios from 1 to 4%. We've saw a lot of bullish headlines over the last couple of weeks. To me, the market's starting to turn. I think it's a really important time, and just like anything, you know, if you just wouldn't do anything massive in life without having some expert help or coaches or something like that, and I think that's kind of the service CC Pro offers. Just try to keep people in as much money as possible, shall we say. So Bitcoin right now trying to close above $91,400 on the daily. Again, it's that same old pattern, 3 rising valleys. We've got 2 weeks ago, low, putting another low on Tuesday. It looks like we're putting another low in this weekend. I did say don't trust weekend pumps, so we need to see how the next 24 hours plays out. I always try to wait until the US stock market opens on a Monday, which is about 2:30 UK time. Just that gives you a better idea of the markets. We saw, for example, let me just find it on here. It might be, in fact, it was this candle here. You know, this was last Sunday, so everything was looking okay. We were above 90k, and then the Asian markets opened at 1 a.m. and Bitcoin absolutely crashed. So that's why I think Sundays are always a bit rocky. You've got Japan, which is in serious financial trouble right now. So who knows what happens while we're all sleeping tonight. But that's why we wait for the Monday stock market opening. People always ask me as well about sushi. Sushi's been absolutely destroyed recently. 33 cents. Now, to put it into perspective, because somebody actually asked me about this the other day. This was the August 2024 low. This was the kind of last major capitulation event, you would say. But sushi moved massively. So this was when Trump got elected the 5th of November until probably, I think it was just a month. I think it was 4 weeks till the start of December. It moved 378%. Well, just to take out that high again, we are now over 750% back just to that high of 283. So that's a massive move, a 7.5x from here, which to me looks like amazing risk to reward. Sure, it can crash further. It could go and fill this wick down to 5 cents. Seems unlikely to me, but I mean, this looked unlikely to me, so they're never say never. But if you're buying spot, the upside potential with sushi is huge right now, as it is with most altcoins. But someone asked me about sushi a few days ago, so I thought I would cover it in a bit more detail. 7.5x to the December 2024 high, but if we zoom out, you can see what the chart looks like. Absolute insane upside potential, and I think Dexys will get a lot more attention. I've said that for a while. We saw Uniswap do well, we saw Hyperliquid do well. We've got Aster now in the mix as well. Drift, the Solana Dex for perps. Aster down quite bad. I think I'm pretty sure CZ said that 92 cents or 90 cents is the point at which he'll start to buy in. I don't think it's wise. I mean, I'm not going to tell CZ what he should do, but I think when people say stuff like that, it forces the market to test out that claim. So I would expect the market to drive this back down to 90 cents, see if CZ is going to continue to be the backstop of price. Jupiter as well, another one that I think's got huge upside. So I got a lot of DMs all the time about just questions that maybe people are curious about: how to set up TradingView, how to use certain indicators, how to send money from one wallet to another, how to set up in Dubai. I get asked loads of questions like that, and sometimes I can't cover them all. Sometimes we can't respond to all the DMs. So we've created one-to-one calls with myself, and really they are designed for stuff like that. It's like helping you set up your TradingView, showing you how to enter and exit trades, how to use indicators on TradingView, maybe even how to set up a wallet, how to set up MetaMask. These are the types of questions we can answer, explaining some of the macro things that I cover on stream, helping you with things like the S&P 500 that we don't really pay too much attention to on live stream. So the link's in description. I do a 30-minute call and I do a 1-hour call. We've done our first one last week. One of our members from CC Pro had a bit of cash that they wanted to deploy into the market, and they wanted to understand the best way to do that. So we went through it. I looked at kind of what their goals were, what their targets were. We helped come up with a bit of a portfolio plan for that, just for that bit of cash, when to enter, how to enter the market, and how to set targets for it. And I'm sure he won't mind me saying, but I'm assuming because he seemed to get a lot out of it. It was very beneficial, and it just gave him confidence in deploying what was quite a significant amount of cash. Rather than doing it all on your own, rethinking things, second guessing yourself, he had somebody to bounce it off. So yeah, we've done our first one. If you want to get involved, the link is in the chat. My calendar's pretty free this week. Feel free to book them up, and slots are limited, so I get a lot of people messaging me. We'll direct you to these calls and I can answer any of your questions. Let's have a look at the Borg chart, because we've not actually looked at it in a while, but it actually rebounded quite nicely last week. On the weekly time frame, we obviously got back down to the 200 MA, never broke below it with a weekly close. I think this was a big whale unloading at one point. That looks like it's over for now. On the daily chart, looks pretty strong, to be fair. It looks like it's recovering nicely. Didn't dump like the rest of the market because it's not on centralized exchanges. I think everybody seems to underestimate why that's so important. When the 10th of October crash happened, Borg obviously was affected with people panic selling, but it didn't have that capitulation wick because it's not futures, and it's also not on centralized exchanges with market makers who literally market dump everything at certain periods. I think the other thing for Borg is the cashback system's now underway. I think people understand it. People are trying to make the most of it. There is talk that they may change the payout schedule so that not every single person gets paid out on the exact same day, just to try and help with the ebbs and flows of the market. I'm not sure if that's going to be approved. I think it's going to the community vote. But yeah, I think again with Borg, a bit like the rest of the market, it's not a question of if, it's just a question of when. I think it's just about being patient. When the liquidity comes, when users come, I think we'll see Borg fly. But the best thing about this whale unloading is it's just distributed those tokens throughout the ecosystem, and it just removes that big sell pressure when we do start climbing again. I think we shared it on a previous stream. I don't have it to hand tonight, but a lot of the supply had been bought around the 20 cents level. So because of that, obviously, when it got to up to these highs, people were in like 3.5x profit in a market that had barely moved all year. So it was natural we were going to see significant sell pressure in here. Now that that's out the way, I think the next time we get up to these levels, we will burst through it, and I think $1 will be the next kind of major level we get to. But for me, there shouldn't be huge amounts of sell pressure there because the coins are more distributed and it's very retail focused Borg, and because of that, it means that people are waiting for like 10x. They're not buying Borg for a 20% move, a 50% move. A lot of the people that are now holding Borg will be holding for that $2 plus level. So I think that's really bullish long term. Keys trades asked me to look at Filecoin. Sure. Filecoin had a weird pump over the last few weeks. I think it was like the privacy token storage narrative, which obviously we saw Zcash do, I think it was 10 or 11x in 6 weeks. Filecoin seemed to do pretty well, but immediately sold back off. So it's pretty much back at the lows from October. I think it's still in this downtrend. I would kind of ignore these candles here. I wonder what it looks like on the weekly. Yeah, I would say it's still in this big long downtrend from February. I think if it breaks that, then the level to look for is that 367. Once it breaks above that, you probably look at the December 2024 level. Again, similar to Sushi, the December 2024 level is 470% from here. So a lot of upside. And the interesting thing for Filecoin is December wasn't actually its local high. The local high for Filecoin was March 2024. So a lot of altcoins broke their their local high in December, but some didn't. I wouldn't be massively concerned by that. I think it's just where the liquidity flowed. It was a 6-week period when Trump got elected to middle of December. I think XRP and maybe Solana dragged on a bit, but most of the altcoins had like a 6-week burst of liquidity. I think that's all it was. I think I wouldn't read too much into which ones peaked in December, which ones didn't, which one's stronger than the other. I think when liquidity comes properly into the market, it knows no bounds, and liquidity will flow into the entire altcoin market. So yeah, it is interesting though that it didn't break this high. So this would be the target to aim for, which is a 10x from here. So again, if you're buying spot, downside, obviously, it could go and fill this wick. I think it's unlikely. I think that 123 level is probably the low. But it does mean you've got 10x upside. And to me, that, I mean, look at this chart. It's absolute carnage. But I'd say $27 looks like a really good level. So, is that like a 20x from here? Is that right? But that would be a really nice target. Yeah, 17x. So 17x from here, not bad. And again, it's another opportunity in the market. The market's giving you an opportunity to buy altcoins really cheap, when normally by this stage people are FOMOing and buying tops. So there's two ways to look at the market. You can be pessimistic and think it's been an absolute grind for 2025, or you could look at it in the positive way and say, I'm getting extra opportunities to stack cheap crypto. Mike says, do you see much sell pressure at the $1 mark? Seems to be a lot of people that have set that as their first TP. So I would be very cautious of listening, talking, or discussing TP levels with a bunch of people on the internet. Most people won't execute. 90% of people that set a TP will change the TP when it gets there. 90% of people will say, oh, when Borg hits $1, I'm selling 75% and just letting the rest run. Borg flies to $1, The market's flying. Cyrus is on powwows. Alex Fazell's tweeting. They'll move their take profit level. They'll put it to 150. And then when it gets to 150, they'll put it to $2. These take profit levels, I've seen it so many times. People set them, move them, set them, delete them, take profit, don't take profit. They say they're going to sell 50%, they sell 10%. That's 100% why we offer, especially Deck and Don do one-to-ones, and their massive portfolio sessions where they go into your targets, your dollar targets, and then break it down by your coins and by your profit targets and by your price levels. That's why we do those, so that you have to execute, because you've got accountability and you've also got someone else in your corner talking you through what they think, helping you make decisions. So I would be very cautious about that. I think $1 is a psychological level, so I do think we'll see sell pressure because people sell around these levels. But I would just be cautious of listening to people's plans when we're in these conditions. It's so easy to make a plan when the market's sideways, kind of boring, not a lot's happening. Plans are easy. When you're in the thick of it and prices are moving and you see an altcoin pop 60% in a day, meme coins are flying 50x in a week, you've got tweets, you've got your friends asking you about crypto, Bitcoin's absolute flying, it's just pandemonium. All the content creators come out because they all make content when it's bullish times and they all hide when it's bearish times. You've got so much noise, it's very hard to execute these plans that everybody comes up with. It's kind of like, it always reminds me of like being at school and you would spend 3 weeks of your study leave creating the best revision plan in the world, but then you wouldn't actually revise because you just spent all your time making a plan on revising. It's a bit like that. So yeah, I just kind of take it with a pinch of salt. I think most people won't execute, or they'll change their plan at the last minute, or they'll be influenced by someone else. Yeah, so there will be sell pressure at $1 for sure, because that's a 5x for a lot of people that were buying in this area. Down here. So a 5x, but I think they'll be foolish. I think they'll regret it. I think $1's too cheap for Borg. I think it's undervalued at $1. But good question, to be fair. And again, more cheap coins. LimeWire, 3 cents. Absolute steal, in my opinion. Opulus, under the 1.5 cent level we covered a few weeks ago. Inspect, absolute wrecked, but massive upside. I still think it'll do well. I think everybody's kind of in hibernation mode in the crypto space. I think market and budgets are just getting conserved. I think teams are just literally hibernating. I think somebody called it turtle mode or hedgehog mode, where they just like cocoon themselves and just hide out until better times. I think a lot of teams are doing that, but I think it's just everybody goes quiet at the one time when it's bearish, and everybody gets loud when it's bullish. And I think once liquidity flows, we'll see all these teams spending fortunes on market and budgets. And that's the key thing with Alvara as well. This is the US central bank balance sheet. This will start to level off this week, which will be bullish for markets. Last week was probably the last drop, and then we should see it level off, which would be nice. And then this, kind of want to finish with this. So this is the gold to silver ratio. So 71 or 72 ounces of silver buy you 1 ounce of gold, which is crazy. I think 31 might be hard to hit, but I definitely think we get down below 50. The demand for silver is huge right now, so I think we'll see gold start to level off. I think we could still see $5,000 gold in 2026. That's not out of the question, but I do think we'll see it level off. But I do think silver is going to continue to run hard. I think the supply issues and the paper silver is going to cause a big problem. So somebody I saw a tweet actually about this, that the real world ratio is about 20 to 1. Right now it's 72 to 1. I think we get closer. I don't think we get that close, but I think below 50 will be pretty good. Alright, that is all for tonight. As I said, we are back tomorrow night with Alpha live stream. That is a private members only, Alpha members only live stream. We do it every Monday. Tuesday, we have a special live stream covering prediction markets, what our thoughts are, showing you how we use them, showing you how they can be used to benefit yourself. And we'll be back later this week with much more content. If you're not in CC Pro, you are missing out. And I will see you all very soon. Thanks very much for tuning in. Make sure you run up the likes, and I'll be back later this week.